Okay, so hello and welcome to today's session, Healthy Summer Celebrations. I don't know about you, Corey and Corinne, but I am ready for summer, and I'm not gonna lie, I do like to celebrate. So COVID things, all of that considered, I am still looking forward to learn from you how we can make our potential celebrations healthy. And I think this is gonna be a great class.
Cool.
So I'm going to do some quick introductions and then we'll get started. So my name is Lizzie. I'm the program coordinator for community culinary and nutrition at Kalamazoo Valley Community College. I have the great honor of developing and delivering classes like these where we connect community to cooking. So my goal is to impart that healthy at-home cooking is fun and fundamental to a healthy lifestyle. So thanks for joining us here today, and I hope you enjoy this session. Next, I would like to introduce my dear friend, Corinne. She is a dietitian at Bronson and works in the ICU and heart failure clinics. Corinne is an exceptionally cool human, adept at meeting people where they are, building genuine, trusted, authentic relationships, and providing nutrition recommendations that lead to lasting lifestyle change and improved health outcomes. She knows how to cook healthy on a budget and can walk anyone through the various resources available in our community. She also has a great sense of humor and even owns a scarf the average length of a colon, which she breaks out for impromptu, interactive discussions on the importance of fiber. Thanks for joining us today, Corinne.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce Chef Corey. Corey is kind of a big deal, just a little bit. I don't know if you know, but he is a frequent flyer on the Food Network. So Chef has been on 17 episodes of Iron Chef America as one of the chefs battling it out on Mike Simon's team. I think they won 15 of their 17 episodes. I haven't seen them all yet, so I'm still collecting the data, but it's a pretty epic track record. Corey has also recently battled through the Food Network Spring Baking Championship and won, big prize, perhaps a lesser known accolade, but no less important. Chef is a co-director of our culinary school, where he trains future chefs to transform our food systems, and we know that is needed now more than ever. So Corey is our very own humble celebrity chef, and I'm thrilled to welcome him here today. So thank you, Corey, and welcome.
Thank you.
So, all right, now let's get to it with healthy summer celebrations. Corinne, to you.
In some ways, this has been the longest, yet also the shortest year of all of our lives, I'm sure. So the fact that it's already a couple days from April as we're recording this blows my mind. So that being said, we are hop, skip, and a jump from summer. And we just wanted to talk more about like healthy eating and all those things that we tend to do in the summer, the grilling, the picnicking, the fairs, the 4th of July, all those things. There's great opportunities to eat really good, nutritious food. And there's also opportunities to improve the things that we're already, doing as far as hopefully this summer we can get back to our celebrations, where last year was a totally different year. But ideally, we can get back to things pretty soon. That being said, at the end of this, we want you to feel confident, whether, like I said, it's picnic, 4th of July, camping, knowing how to eat healthy, and then a lot of this is just a little bit of planning, which Corey's going to help you a lot with. Understanding our food safety guidelines so that we're not getting sick during the summer. And then learning healthy substitutions and cooking methods and approaches to make sure that you can keep all of your health goals on track. Picnics. Do you guys go on picnics? You do? Corey, do you go on picnics?
It's just cool like that. We sort of do. It's usually like right out the back of our minivan, though. It's not like...
Yeah. I like the idea in theory, but like if we go to a park, I lose my son to the playground and there's no real actual eating together that's going on. But I think it's an important thing to talk about as like we're looking at spending more time with people, enjoying the nice weather, and also doing it in, a safe way during the pandemic. Being outside is a great way to kind of incorporate all of those things. Make sure that when you're packing your food, you're storing it in coolers, using frozen gel packs and ice so that you're able to keep temperatures appropriately low. I freeze water bottles when we're going to like the beach or something, pack a bunch of those in there so they work as like a way to cool the food, but also as they defrost, you can drink that really nice cold water. Keeping things at or below 40 degrees is where you prevent bacterial growth. And now that I know that, I get very grossed out sometimes when we're at like family gatherings and they're grabbing this like lukewarm potato salad out of someone's cooler that's been in there for 6 hours. And I'm
Don't do it. Just say no.
it's not worth it. It's not worth the 2 days in the bathroom. It's not.
I say that, but I'm like the downer that I'm so like neurotic about this stuff. Like Jeff gives me a hard time, but I wander around with a thermometer like way too often. Like I'm very concerned about food safety. So Corey, do you want to give us some tips about the time temperature danger zone and what should we legitimately be concerned about?
So legitimately be concerned about, I don't walk around picnics with a thermometer, but there are some things.
It's
that,
okay
like,
if you want to though, right?
it is totally, yeah. I mean, it's your prerogative. You do what you need to do. So in the kind of the thought process between all this, yes, like all your mayonnaise-based products, deviled eggs, things like that, those aren't really like the greatest things to like leave setting out in the sun. Other things that are tricky and people don't expect. So like sliced tomatoes, right? That's a huge one that picks up bacteria like crazy and nobody ever thinks about it. I mean, all of us probably have been to picnics and didn't even think about it. Sliced melon, sliced tomato, sometimes chopped lettuces, because of the high water content, will actually go bad really, really quickly. So like even I've done this one. You cut an heirloom tomato at home and you don't want to put it in the fridge because you want it to stay delicious, but then you come out the next day and if it's in the middle of summer, it'll be going bad already. And so you got to really watch out for those sorts of things that come along. One kind of tip that I would give is this doesn't work for huge coolers, but if you have a smaller cooler that will actually like fit into your refrigerator, say it's just for a picnic, not camping's different, it's challenging. But for a picnic, you can actually put your cooler with all your packed food in the night before, and then the entire cooler will actually cool down. This is the way we do it in restaurants a lot of times. If we're shipping food, we'll take, the large coolers, and we have walk-in coolers, so it's a little bit different. But we would put that inside of the refrigerator itself, let the whole thing cool down before you even close the lid, and that will pick up extra hours to your time for picnics. So yeah, I love the idea of the frozen water bottles too. That's one we use a lot too. And it's really nice. Like it's a double whammy because you have that super cold water, if it's a hot day. So those are nice things.
Another thing. Oh, go ahead.
Things I would recommend actually taking too, like whole fruits are really well, like not cut fruits. If they're whole, they last a little longer. All of your berries and stuff like that, if they're left whole, they last a really long time. Whole vegetables, again, last longer. They're going to hold well. So, pack a little paring knife and you can kind of cut them on site. They will last longer that way.
Another thing to consider is having 2 different coolers, one for drinks and then one for food. Reason behind that is if you're opening the cooler over and over and over and over, you're grabbing out the drinks. You don't want to decrease the temperature inside the cooler for the food that's in there. So, keep the food cold and closed until it's time to eat. And then the drink cooler you can open up. And that's just another good idea same thing like if your power goes out, don't open your fridge a bunch of times. You got to leave that thing closed and it'll stay cold for I think like 48 hours or something. It should, or the freezer for 48 hours. I don't remember, but same idea. Picnic meals. You're already kind of touching on this. Aim for whole fruits. Like, you know what you're talking about. And then whole vegetables versus the processed food. So some examples of this would be like raw veggies with hummus, which we're going to talk about today. Versus chips and dip. Vegetables have the fiber, hummus has protein, chips and dip, it's just salt and fat. Grilled veggie kebabs are something you could bring along with you. I like eating grilled foods cold, leftover, or you can, some picnic places have grills where you can actually do this yourself versus like lunch meats and, American cheese. One's obviously a lot healthier than the other. And then, the boiled corn, there it is.
Yeah, so one of the recipes we had, it's so simple, right? Boiled sweet corn. And I think a lot of people, maybe I take it for granted, but it's one of those ultra easy things to do, right? And during summertime, it's just kind of an example of you have foods that are at peak of freshness. They're absolutely delicious. Boiled corn is sweet corn is something I grew up on. In fact, this is maybe not in lines with dietitian rules, but we would actually just eat boiled sweet corn for dinner when I was growing up. We had a garden that was nearly a half an acre. And my dad grew a ton of sweet corn, and literally you would just eat 6 cobs of corn. And that was it. And it's amazing when it's so good. It doesn't have to be cooked for a really long time. I like to go about 5 minutes or so, not much past that. I do think it's kind of important that the starches in the corn cook a little bit, and then just a touch of butter, salt, and you're done. But the cool thing about that is that's really delicious on a lot of things. I know last year we were like my kids. I know I talk about my kids a lot, but it's vegetables, so kids come up in conversation a lot. So we just had just good old like wax beans, the yellow beans, and we did nothing other than boil them in a pot. And I probably overcooked them a little bit. And we put a tiny bit of butter and salt and pepper on them, and they were slamming. They were so good. The kids ate them all. I mean, so summertime's kind of that beautiful part where cooking can really be that simple. It's really good.
Yeah, the food is fresh enough; it just tastes good on its own.
It does.
In planning healthier meals, again, choosing whole grains is always going to be beneficial for that fiber benefit. One of the suggestions is like this lemon bulgur salad versus a pasta salad. Pasta salad is a refined noodle. It doesn't provide any real nutritional benefit. So talk about a lemon bulgur salad. What would you put in that?
A lot of vegetables, like tiny cut up things. I like, with bulgur, you have to cook it a little bit ahead of time. If you don't know it, it's a type of wheat. And the longer you cook it, the more tender it's going to get. You could use bulgur, you could use quinoa, you could use lentils would be delicious. I know that's not technically a grain, it's a legume, but all of those kind of smaller pieces, and then added to that, I mean, if I'm thinking lemon, I'm going to go lemon juice, lemon zest, a little bit of garlic, a splash of olive oil. Fresh herbs are always great. Parsley is so easy. I mean, just get that in there. Cucumber, tomato, and then honestly, whatever other veggies you have on hand that you can just chop up really small, because you got to think about, the bulgur itself is small. All the grains are really tiny, so you want to chop up whatever vegetables you do have a little bit finer and mix that together.
Mm-hmm. And then when you're picking buns, choose whole grain buns, again, for that fiber benefit, which is good for heart health, good for colon health, good for weight loss, or even lettuce wraps if you're doing a low carb version or you're diabetic and you're trying to watch your carb intake. You can wrap a lot of things in nice, good lettuce instead of just putting it in like a white bun.
Yeah, can I push for that? So I'm not like on a low carb diet, and I love lettuce wrap things during the summertime because it's like, it's cold, it's crisp, and it's juicy, right? And it's just refreshing to eat. I 9 times out of 10 will kind of gravitate towards that over bread during the summer for sure.
Yeah. One of my favorite little salads that I make, salad if you can call it that, is I take like a big piece of whatever kind of lettuce you can get from the farmer's market, or if you're getting it from the store, whether that's a romaine or a giant leaf lettuce, and then I put a smear of hummus and then any kind of vegetables, whether it's not your favorite, but raw carrot, green onion, peppers, corn, and then toss that with like a little vinaigrette and then put that on top of the hummus and just eat it like a taco almost. It's so good.
Right now. You could make that happen, that'd be great.
Yeah, like a walking salad basically is what we call it. And then you don't need silverware, so if it's all cut up ready to go, it's a great one to take with you.
Right.
Staying hydrated is super important when you're out in the heat this summer. Infused waters versus drinking pop. Water is obviously the best liquid for your body. And though one thing I hear across the board from patients is that it gets boring. They get tired of just drinking water. So this is another way to infuse flavor into your water. And these ice cubes, that picture on the side, is a great idea. Freezing little bits of fruits or cucumber or mint just to put that extra flavor in your water, keeping it cold and getting it more interesting as opposed to like, just pop or anything else that you'd be trying to bring. And then for desserts, bring fresh fruit, just like Corey said. Fabulous fruit ideas. Fruit salad, that's a simple one. Grilled fruit, and then berries and yogurt. So Corey, do you want to kind of talk about different ways you would prepare fruit?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to do the berries and yogurt here just a second, but fruit salad is one of my favorite things. And it doesn't need to be like when I was growing up, fruit salad was, we had this very specific green Tupperware bowl, and it was always like all the leftover fruit and like a can of fruit cocktail junk that was poured in there and like all mixed together. And it was pretty terrible. But fruit salad really doesn't have to be that. I love my mom. Mom, if you ever see this, I'm sorry. My dad, you're guilty too. But fruit salad's really kind of an amazing thing. Like, if you just think about it, like, okay, if I make a simple dressing and put it over the fruit, it can be done just like that, right? And so simple dressings can just be, a little bit of honey, a squeeze of lemon juice, maybe some chopped up mint, which is some of the things that we're going to do here in just a second. And they make it just makes really delicious foods. And then if you let the fruit just kind of sit for a little while, they start to bleed out some of their juices, and then they kind of commingle, and it makes just a really delicious, good fruit cocktail, not like the stuff that's in the can. So without any further ado, let's talk about a little fruit salad that we are going to make here. I'm going to just grab some gloves real quick.
It's funny that you mentioned that canned stuff, because my fruit salad growing up, this is what my mom made. It was canned mandarin oranges, canned pineapple chunks, and 1 banana sliced up.
That sounds yes. I think I've had something similar to that before. I always loved the fruit cocktail because there was always like the random maraschino cherry that was in there, and you fought over it with your siblings to see who could get that one.
Like the one piece of bacon in a can of Bush's baked beans.
Yes, exactly. All right, so we're gonna make this pretty simple here. I have some raspberries here. We got some blueberries, and we have some strawberries also. A little bit of honey. So let's put some honey down into our bowl first. I'm gonna actually steal this bowl for myself. So we'll put a little bit of honey into the mixture, or into the bowl rather. Just soften that up. A little stir, and I'm going to add a little tablespoon of water because this will help soften up the honey just a little bit. Just room temperature water, nothing crazy. We'll give that honey just a little quick stir just to kind of break it up. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to chop up some mint in here first. We just have some fresh mint.
What other herbs would go good with the fruit?
Yeah, basil would be really good. If you're adventurous, cilantro would be delicious with this also. Cilantro and a squeeze of lime juice would be really good. Lemon balm, tarragon would be good. Not parsley. I like parsley, but not parsley. I'd stay away from the hard stuff, rosemary, thyme, oregano, things like that. That usually just generates savory things in my head, but I can be proven wrong too. I'm okay with that. A little bit of mint in here. We'll just give that just a quick stir. It's all mixed together. And then again, we have some of our berries. Now, I'm actually going to put the blueberries in first. The reason I'm going to put the blueberries in first, I know it sounds weird, but the raspberries are so fragile, right? Especially if they're super ripe, that they're going to break down. But the blueberries can kind of take that trauma of being mixed up a little bit. So we're going to add those in first, and that will help kind of break up the honey and coat those. And then when we add the raspberries in last, we won't have to mix them as long to get coated because the honey will already be dispersed. And then that way they don't get broken up quite so easily. Give this a good mix. Now, we're going to put this over yogurt rather. And our yogurt is, you can use vanilla yogurt. You can use plain Greek yogurt. That's what we have. I think the sweetness from the honey itself kind of lends just enough sweetness into the yogurt itself. But you could really, if you want to add spices to it, if you just want to, purchase something that's already a little bit sweetened, you could go that route too.
Corey, do you ever macerate the fruit in this honey water mixture with the herbs over time? Or is this something you're preparing fresh and serving immediately?
So you can let it, that's a really good question. So if you let it sit for a long time, it will pick up flavors, but anybody who's marinated berries kind of knows that they kind of start to get mushy, right? So there's a window, I think, in there. And for me, that window, for berries is an hour. Anything past them, they start to fall apart a little bit. They start to get mushy. That doesn't mean they're bad. And quite frankly, in the morning, if you're just going to mix the berries right into yogurt and eat it, it's pretty good that way too. But I think that, I like to have them hold on to their integrity as long as possible. So it's something that I would do close to serving. So maybe I would do this. Yes, I would serve this for a dinner dessert. I think it'd be great in the summertime. But I would put my yogurt down on the bottom of the bowl. You can even put the berries on top, chuck it in the fridge, let it sit for an hour. You can just pull it out at the end of the meal or whatever, and you're good to go. So it's really simple in that way, but the berries haven't really started to break down and fall all apart. Also with mint is going to start to turn black. The longer you let it set, it's just kind of, it's a quick oxidizing herb. It's what it does. So I try to do it closer to the time. That said, if I've made this ahead of time and it's sitting in my fridge overnight, I'm still going to find a way to eat it the next day. It'd still be really, really good. Go chuck it in a bowl of cereal. You can put it in, just over yogurt again. dump it in a blender and turn it on, and bang, you got a really good smoothie there too. So pretty flexible item. All right, so we have a little bit of Greek yogurt. I'm just going to give this a stir. And this is kind of fun. Both of these serving methods for the kind of cooking demos today are like share plates. You can do this individually, but this is something that we do a lot in the summertime with my family. And this is why. Because we grill a lot in the summer, and I hate doing dishes. So if I can like put everything on one plate and just send it out and everybody can share off that plate, we are like in a super good situation. Now, if you're inviting a bunch of people over that you don't know or whatever COVID deems worthy these days, if you have any situation with that, I wouldn't go this route, have people scoop it themselves. But if it's your family and you're comfortable with everybody, I think it's a nice method. And again, it cuts down on the dishes factor. So we got a little bit of the yogurt spread out, just some fresh strawberries here. And you can tell it's starting to turn spring. These are getting nicer. All right, these are beautiful. And some of those raspberries we were talking about, and again, just being really gentle with them. If you've ever picked fresh raspberries, like they're one of the, I don't know, I think they're one of the most delicious fruits to have fresh. They also last like 13 minutes. They just want to turn into like little water balloons right inside of the, those paper pint containers, and they start to bleed everywhere.
We had raspberry bushes growing up in our job, and we had strawberries that grew on the bottom. So strawberries on the ground, raspberry bushes that grew tall. And we had, our job was to pick every berry we could find. So my mom would make our like jams for the year. We'd have raspberry jam and strawberry. None of the raspberries made it into, you would always have to buy the raspberries because you're like picking them off and you're like, well, that one broke, guess I'll eat it, and they're so delicious fresh that like. Absolutely.
They're so good fresh, right? And I mean, this looks great. It's so funny. We've never made this dessert. And I mean, it's yogurt and berries. It's so simple. So I mean, super, super tasty, really vibrant in color, really, really bright. I don't know. This is like a pastry chef's kind of thing too, because it's like the white background and the offset of the colors. If you wanted to get more extravagant, toasted nuts on top of this, any kind of fresh fruits will work for this. I mean, really, it's yogurt and fruit at the end of the day. We all know about this, but sometimes adding just that, a touch of mint, a touch of honey. If you want to get kind of fun, you could even put a little bit of chili flakes on here if you like a little spiciness. It'd be really good. Chili and honey is like super delicious together. So fun, super, super easy dessert. And this also kind of shows like the fruit salad idea, right? It doesn't just have to be fruit in a bowl. It can actually have, touch of sweetness added to it, a little bit of herbs added to it. Lime juice on this would be exceptional too. Lime pretty much makes any fruit taste better, like just instantly. It's almost like cheating. It's really, really good. So there we go.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Regarding like grilling fruits, because that's something that was on the last slide. Personally, I have grilled pineapple and then like peaches or nectarines, and they're delicious. And I put that as like a side, like a piece of fish or like salmon and grilled pineapple or whatever. Have you done anything other than those fruits?
Yeah, I have. And I think there's a reason that we keep going back to those fruits because they work really nicely, right? So pineapple you cut into slabs, grilled pineapple works beautifully. I've grilled plums, nectarines, peaches, like all the stone fruits work really well. You can actually do grilled cherries. I know it sounds crazy. You just have to have small grates and put them on their whole, but they come out pretty good. I know people that have done grilled watermelon. I don't know that I've ever had it or tried it. It sounds good. I'm sure you just have to have a screaming, you have, Lizzie? Just screaming hot grill, right? Like really, really hot. Yeah, to get that sear on there. Otherwise, it just is going to boil on your grill. So, Lizzie, have you done any other fruits?
I love peaches, and peaches are kind of my go-to. Pineapple. No, I mean, mostly the ones you covered. Yeah. I grilled watermelon and did like a feta salad with grilled watermelon.
Yeah. That's exactly how
fresh herbs. Yeah.
It is really delicious. Grilled peaches used to be my, I never wanted birthday cakes as I got older because I've seen enough cakes in my life. So it was grilled peaches, waffles, and vanilla ice cream is my birthday dessert every year. I love it.
That's
my kids. One year they made it with Eggo waffles. It was good enough. I love kids, you know, whatever. They want to do that one again. Anyway, frozen grapes are delicious too.
We actually recommend those to our heart failure patients all the time because they're on a fluid restriction. So if you can't drink extra liquid, how do you cool your drink? So freeze grapes, put that in your water. It helps work as ice cubes, and then you have a little snack on the way. If you just eat them frozen, they're delicious when it's super hot out. And they are also a great way to cool down wine. I know that's like a thing that you're not supposed to do, but I like my wine cold. So I put them in the wine, so then you're not getting it watered down by, the ice.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Frozen blueberries are really good in the summertime.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. On to vegetables. Again, bring fresh cut vegetables and healthy dip, whether that's hummus or making your own like low fat sour cream or yogurt dip. Do you make any of your own dips with those ingredients?
Yeah, we do a lot. There's so many variations, and we're kind of going to do. And when we say hummus, I don't want to get technical because we're just going to use it at large, basically like a pureed bean or some sort of vegetable. But we've done some fun ones too. I think we did one not too long ago for classes. There was Lizzie, this one may have been your recipe, but it was white beans and beets, and then we did it with walnuts. Is that right? Seems like something we made before.
I have a beet dip that I love that I think we did for a couple of our sessions. But yeah, I think we did a white bean, kind of a riff on hummus. But there's so many interesting dips, like vegetable-based dips. And that beet dip I eat on everything. It's a little embarrassing.
And that,
I've taken it too far.
I think
It's so good.
It's really easy to use, like just to turn into a dip. Black eyed peas work really, really well too. I love black eyed peas like a lot. But canned beans, you just drain them off, and we're going to talk about that too. I drain them off, and then I actually reserve some of the liquid from the can in case you need to make it a little softer. That way, you're not adding in like a ton of olive oil to make it softer. Although it is delicious, but it's oil nonetheless. But yeah, any kind of beans that go along those. Roasted vegetables or like leftover grilled vegetables can work too. You just blend them up, and if you add a little bit of canned beans to them, bang, you got something that's kind of like roasted vegetable dip there too. So there's so many options. Yogurt across the board, Greek yogurts that you can season. Add a little bit of garlic too. I mean, you could do like the I just dropped the name of it. The tzatziki, kind of with a grated cucumber in it, dill, yogurt, some fresh chopped garlic, salt. It's really delicious in there. So lots of options. And then I know that little next note there, the fresh salsa and pico de gallo too. So pico de gallo is nothing more than, as we know it anyway, tomato, onion, cilantro, some chili peppers in there. So salsa, right? It's fresh salsa. That doesn't have to just stay in that category. You can just start including random vegetables at large in there too, and it can be really, really good. I think the best ones to use in those salsa kind of variations are the fruits and veggies that are like juicy, right? So that's why tomatoes are in there. You see cucumber used a lot in there. I wouldn't put raw carrot in it, but that's just me. In case we haven't covered it in this video, I have a thing against raw carrots.
Cinnamon too.
What?
Cinnamon too.
It's not in my apple desserts. That's all. That's how I feel about it. Cinnamon too. I forgot about that. Thanks.
I love fruit salsa though, and I make it a lot. So I think that's another thing not to discount.
What do you use in them?
Like, what makes the salsa? Like
what do you use for your fruit salsas? Like blueberry. I mean, I see that one a lot.
I'm a little embarrassed to say because it's not a local product, but I love mango. And I buy, frozen mango and either eat it raw in the summer or I'll chop it up and make salsa if I have fresh mango, obviously. But yeah, and I like that sweet and heat. So I always put a lot of chili powder in it. But there's something about that flavor profile to me that I love. And then I usually bake off like whole grain pita bread and make, chips for it. But
we do that too. I used to work at Family and Children's Services before I was a dietitian, but I was in school. So I was trying to figure out how can we get these kids to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables? And it kind of goes back to what Corey always talks about, cut it up small and they'll eat it. I mean, truly. So we would do strawberries, kiwis, nectarines or peaches, cut everything up real small, toss it in a bowl, maybe a little lemon juice, a little, whatever. And then we would make cinnamon tortilla chips, basically, where you sprinkle a little cinnamon sugar on some pita bread or tortilla chips, bake that off, and these kids would just devour it. And these are kids who maybe had never even had a kiwi before, and they didn't know necessarily what it was. They just knew it was sweet and good.
And you say for kids, but that sounds delicious. I would take them right now. So it's good for parents too.
Absolutely. Salads are another thing to consider as we're like moving through this slide. Corey has shown in many different classes ways to very easily make your own vinaigrettes. You can keep it in a mason jar. You can talk a little bit more about that. But when you do that, you're avoiding those store-bought, high-fat, high-salt, just thick dressings. And you have this nice, wonderful thing that you can keep reusing. So I don't know if you want to talk on that, Corey.
Sure. Yeah. So we have a go-to dressing here that we use often. With 1 part honey, 1 part olive oil, 1 part cider vinegar, and we put it just in a mason jar or some sort of well-lidded container. Make sure it fits on really well, and then just shake it up. And even if you don't want to do that, you can put it in a bowl and just whisk it. But it's nice to have it in a jar. It will like separate over time in the fridge, but then you can always just pull it out and give it another good shake, and that will kind of bind back together. And then the salads are simple. I mean, if you have some fresh greens, and I like the darker, heartier ones. I mean, we use Swiss chard, we use kale. Even if chopped fine enough, you can use collard greens in a salad too. And then a bunch of just fresh veggies chopped up small, just like Corinne's mentioned. The smaller you chop those vegetables, it's kind of interesting because then when you go in for a bite, you get all these different veggies and textures all at one time, instead of just like, hey, here's my piece of iceberg and there's my one random tomato. You have like all these flavors are really together. Add a splash of vinaigrette to it. And when you're dressing a salad, don't overdress it. You want the dressing to be like, it should be a seasoning for the salad. It shouldn't be the main event. It shouldn't be pooling in the bottom of the bowl or in the bowls. And I'm not saying you don't want to use dressing. I always think about it as a flavor component, but it should just kind of glaze the whole salad. But super easy to make.
And the other thought here too is if you're going to some sort of summer party or a picnic or a barbecue or whatever, don't dress that salad, I'm assuming, before you go. Bring it in your little jar and then put it on when you get there. Would you say that's correct?
It depends on the thing. So like say you're doing spring lettuce or like a spring mix, the smaller greens, yes, go that route. If you're using like if you do a kale salad, I've dressed it like 6 hours ahead of time and it holds up. So it really depends on, you got to think about that green. If it's a true lettuce, like really light and delicate, yeah, definitely just take it along and dress it there. If it's like a heartier green, like kale or Swiss chard, you can dress them ahead of time. Cabbage, cabbage is a good example. We make coleslaw and let that set for hours. So it just depends on the green a little bit. And when in doubt, yeah, just wait.
Speaking of something,
Real veggie time, cool. Grab all my goodies.
have you ever pureed grilled eggplant and made like a baba ganoush type thing?
Yes, and I love it. 1 second. Yeah, I have done the pureed eggplant. That was actually one of the staples at Lola, was like a pureed eggplant. We used to do it with, we charred the eggplant really, really heavily, pureed it with Greek yogurt, a little bit of mascarpone cheese. It was mostly eggplant, olive oil, jalapeno, and sauteed onion. And it's slamming good, just really tasty. So we're going to do a riff on grilled vegetables and hummus. So the grill that we have here, we're not going to use. It's not super optimal for what we're doing. So I'm going to talk you guys through some of the veggies that we have grilled up ahead of time, how to cut them. But the first thing that we're going to make is our riff on hummus, right? And this is going to be like the easiest hummus probably you've ever made, because really there's only one ingredient in it, and it's just a white bean. So like a navy bean or a Great Northern bean, they're a little softer. Cannellini beans, while I love them for like eating straight up, I don't like them particularly for pureed items because they're a little bit more firm, and the skins don't break down as easy. But like a cannellini bean will hold on to its shape for a salad really, really well. In fact, that would be the preferred method. So we have our beans that are in here right now. Now, at this point, if you want to add anything to this, feel free, right? You know, a little salt, pepper, touch of olive oil, lemon juice, some spices. It's, the world's kind of your oyster right there. And you can go about it however you'd like. But I'm going to get this blending up a little bit. I'm going to be quiet while it blends because it's going to take all the volume. And then if it's too thick, we did save a little bit of the liquid from the beans that were in the can. So that we'll be able to use that to thin it out a little bit. Oh my gosh, I have a thing with food processors. They don't like me, but this one wasn't bad. Good, so I'm gonna stop it here. And it is dry, and that's what's to be expected. So some of the texture that you get when it's dry is, it's just gonna be really, really firm, kind of grainy. Catch it on that one too. Kind of grainy. And if that happens to you, that's why we have that reserved bean liquid. Now, if you dump the bean liquid down the drain and you forgot to save it, it's okay. You can add some water in there. You could add a little bit of olive oil in there. Do what you need to do on that point.
Funny story. As you were prepping for this, I noticed you look at like your tray of like the ingredients and you were like, what is this? And you picked it up and smelled it. Now I know why you made the face that you did, because it was just bean water that you were smelling.
Yep, totally. I smell everything. Like the first time I walked in and I saw the tray of ingredients, I'm like, that is a lot of lemon juice, because I never realized how much bean water looks like lemon juice randomly. But obviously it was not. So we're gonna blend this up a little bit more and see if we can get this a little softer, and then we'll just keep adding the liquid as we need it. All right, so we have a pretty smooth texture. Anytime you're using the food processor, remember to scrape down the sides. It will separate in textures on the inside, right? So you'll chop up a whole bunch and it'll be smooth in some spots and kind of coarse in others. So we want to make sure that we scrape down those sides as we go. It's looking pretty good. Give it one more buzz and then we should be good to go. So cool things to do, like along with this, I really like the flavor of raw kale, and I could stand alone in that, I don't know. But I actually like it. Don't forget this falls out. I actually like it like chopped up in things, and it will turn this kind of green too, and it looks really cool when you put fresh kale in there. Then you end up with little specks of kale. So what we have something that's pretty soft at this point, and it looks pretty much just like hummus, and it's spot on. We didn't really do much at all there, right? So it's a pretty easy way to go about it. I'm gonna take this guy off of here, maybe, and set this to the side for just a little bit. We'll get our counter kind of cleared off. And then we're gonna move on to our tomato vinaigrette. Now for the tomato vinaigrette, we have some cherry tomatoes that have just been cut in half here. And when you think of a vinaigrette, vinaigrette's nothing more than vinegar with stuff mixed into it. Like, let's just be really honest. It's not that fancy of a term. It can be a chunky type situation. It can be used on hot items. It can be used on cold items. But the cool part about it is basically you have an acidity that you can use to season other foods with. So that's what we're gonna do here. We're gonna use tomatoes. We have a little bit of fresh garlic. We have some of our vinegar here. Got some salt, pepper, and then olive oil. And really, I'm calling it a tomato vinaigrette. Some people would just call this a tomato salad at this point. But I think you can let this sit for a little while too, and it brings out a little bit more of the tomato flavor. So we have, again, the chopped cherry tomatoes here. We'll add a little salt there. Give them a toss. We have some chopped garlic, fresh garlic here. You make it as spicy as you want to. I like raw garlic like a lot. I didn't realize how much I like raw garlic until probably a couple years ago. But it's good, I don't know. If you have any like major meetings or anything to go to, just pick up a piece of gum or something. I think it'll be fine.
We wear masks
right.
now, so it's okay.
What's that?
We wear masks now, so it's okay.
That's very true. We have masks. Eat as much garlic as you want. A little bit of black pepper. And then we have our cider vinegar. in this case, you can use whatever vinegar you'd like. Red wine vinegar, white wine, apple cider vinegar, malt vinegar, plain old white distilled vinegar, like I use at home a lot. You could use balsamic in this one. It would be totally appropriate. That would be okay. So we'll add a little bit of our vinegar. Now, I get heavy-handed sometimes with vinegar because I like vinaigrettes that are like really punchy. So I almost go like a 1-to-1 ratio. And when I say 1-to-1, for every 1 teaspoon of vinegar that I use, I'll use 1 teaspoon of olive oil because I like that zippy kind of tang that it adds to it. Now, this is going to be for quite a large portion here. So I'm going to get this, I'm actually going to get this pretty saucy. Add in some there, because this is going to get poured over all of our good stuff. We'll set this aside. Now you can make this one ahead of time for sure, and it would start to break down. I love tomatoes in like vinegar, and like the old school tomato onion vinegar salad. That's one of my favorite things on the planet. So that makes me really hungry right now. All right, so let's talk about grilled veggies. When you're putting vegetables on the grill, anybody that's grilled vegetables has dropped them through the grates at some point or another. I don't care how great you are at it. Sometimes it just happens, especially the asparagus, when you think it's rolling the right direction, it goes the other way.
Every time.
Here goes your asparagus. So some tricks for that. Some of the culinary staff here, we grilled off a little bit of veggies ahead of time. And what we have is, I'm going to grab just a pair of gloves real quick. We did some onions here, sweet potato. Grilled sweet potato is awesome if you've never had it. It's really, really tasty. It's kind of funky. The first time I ever had it, I was shocked how well it actually cooked through on the grill. I think it's pretty great. But we got some onions, cauliflower. There are planks of yellow squash here. There's roasted red pepper here. And then we have a zucchini as well. And I'm just going to go through like cutting that. So we can talk about it so that you don't drop it through your grill grates, at least not as much. How about we'll say that? So with the zucchini, when we cut that, we can remove our stem end, set that aside. We can remove the blossom scar at the other end. That's what that is. And then when we cut these, I like to go like a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch thick. That's what all these are, beautiful. You're gonna cut down and along that vegetable, right? And then you end up with the plank, that's here. And then again, we'll go through, kind of cut them along. And remember, we're holding our fingers back as best we can. This is a round object. So if you don't feel really secure with that, you can always just trim off a piece off the bottom and flip that to the side and it will be flat then, okay? When you're holding, gripping the knife, you wanna make sure our fingers are up front, 3 fingers in the back. We really like that kind of pinch hold that's on the knife. It gives you a lot more control there. And then we'll go down. So I got out of 1 full zucchini, really like 4 planks. I would not recommend getting any more than 5 planks. Otherwise they're gonna be too thin. And then what happens with zucchini is easy because it lays across the top of the grill, but as it cooks, it gets super fragile. And if you go back and say you cut it 1/8 of an inch thick, you go to pick it up, it just kind of falls and dies and makes a mess all over your grill. That's what you do want to avoid. So there's zucchini. Most of the vegetables are the same kind of way, but the cool part is now we have all these parts and pieces, and I do this a lot, where I'll cook vegetables in a large state and then go back and do it. At home, we do a lot of charred broccoli. The other day, we had a broccoli open-faced sandwich, and we put the broccoli in the pan. We charred it really hard in the pan. I actually put a teapot on top of it to crush it, and then we take it out afterwards and then chop it up. And you're a lot more likely to pick up even charring that way. You have the larger products and then chop it, as opposed to like filling up a pan with a whole bunch of small pieces that are a little bit unmanageable. So we got some of these. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back and just give a quick rough chop on some of our veggies. We can do that on the yellow squash too. And you can make them as big or as small as you'd like. I like them to be pretty large. That way you can actually see what's kind of going on there. We had some mushrooms too. And the mushrooms were grilled whole, which is the easiest way for sure to keep those kind of nice. Alrighty. And we'll we'll start adding them into just a little mixing bowl. With some of these, I'm going to toss them up together, and we're kind of like making that salad, right? That we kind of led on to before. I'm going to leave some of the onions a little larger because they'll look really pretty on the top. We'll do some of the sweet potatoes here too.
When I grill sweet potatoes, I often will like brush them with a honey lime, just like lime juice and honey stirred together. It's delicious.
Do you do it while they're cooking or do you do it afterwards?
I like brush them before I put it on the grill, but then once I flip them, then I brush them again.
Yeah, kind of baste them a little bit.
Yeah.
Do they pick up color pretty quickly because of the honey that's in there? By that I mean, do they cook really quick?
Yeah, I mean they cook great. I don't know about quickly. I am not good at time management, but they're delicious. And you know, as I'm watching you cut all this up, it also reminds me like what beautiful prep you have here. So you have so much vegetables. You know, if you're gonna grill, you might as well like maximize what you've got and think about like all the salads and incredible dishes you could prepare from what you have on your cutting board just right now. Like I can think of so many different delicious iterations of what's going on here.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, it's just so, the grill is awesome like that, right? Because you can, you know, it's for most people at home, that's the only time they'll ever have like a single surface that's that large that they can put all that food on. Most people don't have like a flat top grill kind of hanging out at home. If they do, it's pretty small. But you know, when you get out the grill during the summertime, and it's nice too because you get to hang out outside. It's a little bit more of an event. You know, you're just kind of chilling out, and everything's happening around you, which is really fun.
I was just talking to some coworkers about that because seems to be two schools of thought with people who grill. The ones that do it as like a thing to do, which is I put myself in that category, as in my son's playing in the backyard, my husband and I are standing around the grill, we're just talking, maybe sipping on a drink. It's an event. And then there's the people who are like, they're out there in the middle of the winter, like running a steak to their grill because they want to have that flavor and they're running back in the house. And that like blows my mind that people do that. Cause I'm like, what? Like to me, it's a hangout place, not like a thing you do when it's cold.
We grill all winter in our house and it's ridiculous. Like, we totally do.
Love it.
I don't know.
All right, so we have kind of a large plate, and this is how we do it at home. Again, it's a share plate, and I go with the hummus. I spread it around down kind of in the bottom of the plate. And on top of that, then we start adding like the grilled veggies, and this is so fun. This is really one of my favorite kind of ways to serve things. So the veggies will just get tossed a little bit, and then you just go right on top of your hummus with it all. And then, you know, we would serve like warm pita bread, like off the grill kind of with this too. And it's really good. Otherwise warm grilled bread or something along those lines works. Add that mushroom there too. And we could do a little bit of the grilled onion on the top. Spin it around.
One of my favorite things to grill actually is cabbage. I don't know if you've done that, but I'll do like thicker, not super thick, but thicker whole rounds of cabbage. It's so good.
It chars up really nice too, right?
Yeah.
It's caramelized, which is awesome. Some of our sweet potato on there. And then towards the end, we had a little kale hanging out. And I know this one isn't in the recipe, but I thought it sounded delicious. So it's going to be in the recipe now. We'll do a little bit of our kale, and then we have all of the tomato vinaigrette that's going to go on the top as well. So all the tomatoes. This looks ridiculously good.
I was thinking that, like, also what a fun dish because every bite, you know, is different. Like it's kind of something to explore versus just getting something that's plated in a way for you that, you know, just feels like you know what you're getting. But this has so many different layers that you can dig through and different textures from each of the items you grilled and the fresh kale.
Yep. It's just really, really fun. And the mixing and matching, you could use all sorts of different things. It's a great share plate, to kind of to hang out with folks. It's just a great idea just in general. And you can mix and match, the kind of the schmear on the bottom. You could do all the different things we talked about, hummuses, black-eyed peas, black beans on the bottom would be really great. All the grilled veggies that are on the top. So it's kind of a winner along that one for sure.
Chef, can you tilt it up a little bit toward the?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I got to be honest. We've made a lot of this stuff and a lot of these videos. This is one of my favorite dishes we've ever made. So, plus the culinary staff did most of the work.
Cheers to the culinary staff. Looks delicious. Thank you, Chef.
And one thing we always talk about is eating the rainbow. Look at that. Like that's like every color is being hit on. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean everything is on here. It really is, and it's so easy to change it up too. It's funny. Like I look at all these grilled veggies, and I'm thinking, okay, if you didn't eat all that at once, it's so easy. You could take all of them and put them right back in the food processor, puree them all up, and then bang, you have a vegetable dip right there. So it's like a really easy one to use up leftovers on. Great on sandwiches too.
Yep.
Throw it in between two pieces of bread. You got a really, really great sandwich right there too, which is awesome.
Yeah, Martini's downtown Kalamazoo has a really good like vegetable sub. Basically, it's just a bunch of grilled or sautéed vegetables between some delicious bread.
Can't go wrong.
Nope.
Absolutely.
Okay, so after he's getting cleaned up, talking about grilling safety. This is probably a lot of this is actually things I'm just going to direct back to Corey because he has all the experience with this.
So grilling safety. This is funny. I just had a conversation with my son about this kind of stuff. Make sure your grill's clean. That's kind of a big one. You will find a lot of leftover carbon that's on the grill. To clean off your grill, let's talk about that just really quickly. Heat that thing up really well. And if you're like me, you probably left some little bits onto your grill. But it's really easy to clean it the next time because you can turn that heat on high, and you should have a wire bristle brush. Even if it's a small one, you don't need a huge one at home, but just to clean off those grates. Otherwise, carbon builds up really over time, and it tastes really nasty. I can't imagine it's really great for you to digest either. Make sure your grill, you get it nice and hot before you actually cook on the top of it. Have all your necessary tools that are there. If you're cooking chicken and it's your first time, kind of through that temperature, thermometers are really, really nice. And you can get a small instant read thermometer for $5 to $7. They're not super expensive. The big one there is using separate plates and utensils for raw meats and veggies, right? So chicken, we'll just keep talking about chicken because it's always kind of the scare. Raw chicken, you take it off of one plate and then you put it on your grill. You want to make sure that you get a different plate for that chicken. Also, use different utensils to turn the chicken too, right? So you're not just using the raw chicken utensils all the way through. You can sanitize them, wash them, bring them back out. That's fine, but make sure that's what you're looking out for. Cross-contamination at grilling at home is really common. When we talk about cross-contamination, it basically means having a raw meat product on a plate and then having a cooked meat product or any kind of edible product that's going to go onto that same plate. So make sure you have a clean plate that's ready for the cooked food.
I think sometimes that can happen because like my grill, there's not a lot of workspace. So if you're trying to like put dirty plates and clean plates next to each other, it's very easy to have that cross-contamination.
It really is, yeah. One thing I didn't talk about, another grill safety tip too, I don't recommend using like sprayed fats, so like Pam or like hand spray to spray your grill. You are going to get flare-ups if you use it. I won't say if I've ever done it before, but don't do it if you're not. Yeah, just don't do it. So indirect heat cooking methods. So when we're talking about grilling, indirect heat methods are when your fire or your flame is not directly underneath of the food that you're cooking, right? So it's going to be really ideal for foods that need a really long time to be on the grill. So, and I know that grilling and barbecuing are not the same thing, but for anecdotal reasons, we're going to kind of compare the two at least. Make sure, if you have a piece of meat or a vegetable that needs to cook for a really, really long time, either A, you put it over just a really small flame, or you have your flames just kind of off to the side. For direct heat cooking, when we're talking like, all those vegetables that we had, those are going to need high heat to cook really, really quickly. And so you could have those over a really hot flame like that. Can we go to the next one?
Just waiting for it. Marinate.
Marination. Okay, so marinating. Marinating can do a lot of things for meats and veggies alike, adding flavor, increasing tenderness because of the acidity that's in there, keeps foods from drying out. It does a lot of things and actually slows the growth of harmful bacteria. And when we think about marinades, most of the time, like I always think of the one my mom made, which was basically Italian dressing, just dumped over something and let it sit for a long time. I hate to say it, but it's pretty tasty. Like even if you go back and eat it now, like it's not too bad. Because most of the marinades now, even as a chef, it's basically oil and vinegar that I use to start, and then I add some spices to it. So if you're going to let things marinate, you can let them, it's really up to you on how long you want to let them marinate for. Thinner cuts of meat, usually you want to let marinate for a less amount of time, so maybe a couple hours, whereas a larger cut of meat, longer. And veggies, I think, hold up to marinades really well. And you can use dry rubs for vegetables too, which is just basically spices and sugars on the outside of a vegetable there too. So that will help on that too.
Yeah, let's go ahead to the next slide then, because that's going to be everything you were just starting to talk about.
Of course. I'm always one slide ahead. That's the way my brain kind of works.
Which is funny because like I put the slides together and then he just automatically starts talking about and saying the things that need to be said. At least we know we're on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of those building blocks, when we talked about those parts and pieces for the marinades, it's just herbs, it's acids, it's oils, salt, definitely, we would have that in there too. But, in modest amounts. Acid is a big one, I think, and it doesn't just have to be vinegar. It could be citrus, could be anything along those lines. So good stuff.
So then, Corey, just to touch on the heart-healthy oils, the ones that come to mind when we're thinking heart-healthy oil would be olive oil, or first and foremost. And then it gets into like your canola oils. And then there's even like the avocado or walnut oils that are out there. Which ones would work well for grilling?
So if you're going to go olive oil, I wouldn't spend a bunch of money on like extra virgin olive oil for a marinade per se, although it can taste really good, but sometimes it burns really easily on the grill. Canola oil is super friendly like that. If you want like a pure olive oil flavor when it comes off, you could always dress the item with a little bit extra virgin olive oil, and that works out pretty nicely. But the walnut and avocado oils, I just wouldn't use them. They're just expensive. I mean, plain and simple, they're really pricey. Yeah. And if I'm going to use them, I'm going to put them on like at the end of a meal. We use a lot of canola oil at home. It's pretty inexpensive, and it works out well. Corinne, were you just laughing at me because I'm cheap?
I mean, no, not at all. I just think it's funny because like I do know a lot of people who invest in these super, super expensive oils. And then when you're using them certain ways, I feel like you're covering up the entire flavor of them anyway. So what was the point of that?
Yeah, totally agree.
So that's just was my laughing there. So I'm just remembering all these conversations I've had with different people in the past. I like olive oil the best. I just like the flavor of it. So I use that almost exclusively, except for like baking. But anyway, charring on meats, this is something that I think not everyone knows about, but we should touch on. As more studies have been done, there are certain things that we know to be carcinogenic. And of course, many, many, many things that we encounter in this world are carcinogenic. But if we can reduce risks of certain cancers, we may want to do that. Red meats in general have been linked to increased risk of colon cancer. And then when you take those red meats, throw them on a grill and char the heck out of them, it's even increases your risks further. It kind of releases these compounds that are just not conducive to, optimal health long term. So be careful with that. Things to do to prevent charring would be to trim the fat beforehand, which also makes it a more heart healthy product anyways. And then turn meat frequently. so that you're not getting as much of the charring, and then trim charred areas before consuming it. So I don't know if Corey, you have any other ideas regarding that?
I'm sorry, I was talking to the culinary group.
Other than the things that are on the slide, are there any other things you can do to prevent charring of meats, or is that basically it?
It's a slippery slope. So I know that it's carcinogenic, but sometimes that's like the delicious part of grilling at the same time. Turn your flame down. You can use a big one to prevent a lot of carbon anyway is preventing flare-ups, right? So if you've ever cooked, and meats are 9 times out of 10 really responsible for this. The fat from chicken or something will drip down and hit your coals or your gas, and then you get this massive flare-up, and that's when you get a lot of, and it's not good carbon, it's just nasty at that point. So, to avoid that, if you have a little spray bottle with water, that does help. Indirect heat cooking methods help too. But you got to play with it a little bit. I think when you're grilling meats, I think one of the biggest things is like be present. Don't just put 4 chicken thighs on the screaming hot stove and walk away because you're going to come back to an inferno. That's just kind of the way it is.
That's what I was talking about, where it's more like an event, where I want to be there, I want to be part of that process, and it's just like a relaxing, fun thing to do versus an actual cooking method, I guess. I mean, I know it is, but.
Totally.
Okay. Oh, this is all you.
Oh, yes. We'll talk about some meat safety. So this is a good one just to take a snapshot. Let's talk about that 165 temperature. So 165, when in doubt, where you should cook something to, especially if you're immune compromised or something along those lines, you definitely want to take your stuff up to that zone, right? 165 is for chicken, any kind of leftovers or casseroles. Basically, it kind of kills any little microbes that might be hanging out inside of your food. And definitely for chicken, we want to cook it that high. Now you get into some different things when you're looking at ground meat, that's 155. Seafood is also 155. And then fish, steaks, and roast are all 145. The interesting thing becomes, and you can get an an instant read thermometer. You can get infrared too if you want, but an instant thermometer, and that's kind of your probe thermometer, and take all the temps on these. As you're grilling, usually chicken's not the case. Usually we all like chicken done. We can kind of throw that out there, but I'm going to look at like steaks for sure. We have different opinions out there with the rare and the medium rare and medium, and those temperatures are going to be less than 145 degrees. 145 degree steak is a well done steak, plain and simple. If you like your meat cooked at different temperatures, you can look those up. I'm not going to get into a lengthy discussion about what those temperatures are right now, but like a medium rare steak is 125-ish. So it's a lot lower. It's 20 degrees lower. You do run the risk of having a foodborne illness exposure that way. So think about whatever you're grilling. If you're going to have a medium rare steak, you might want to consider the source where you bought the steak from. Give it a good sniff. Make sure it's a good quality. It hasn't been hanging around too long. So think about those things when you need to be honest with yourselves. The cool part is veggies don't have a lot of these crazy temperatures that are on there. So veggies usually run pretty safe environment.
So just know the risks and then decide what you want to do with that information.
Yep, because we all have our own. I have my own beliefs of what a beef steak or even a piece of pork should be.
Ground meats. Idea here is that you can make your ground meats go a little farther and enhance the nutritional benefits if you're adding other things to it, whether you're enhancing the flavor, bringing down that fat content, increasing your fiber intake. It's kind of like that meatloaf principle. Like if you add other things to it, you can make it go farther and then boost up the nutrition. So just some ideas here of things you could use, like oats, beans, and legumes. I like black beans in burgers. Any other chopped vegetable I think is fantastic. I wish I liked avocado. I just don't. So it's never going to be something I would add to a meal. I've tried so hard because I know it's so healthy, but I just can't get myself there yet.
One thing to add to this list is mushrooms, like chopped mushrooms, whether raw or cooked. You can add like 1/3 to 1/2 of the weight in mushrooms into like just a burger. And I think it's better than without it. It's really good.
Absolutely. And then make sure that you are, if you're temping anything, ground meats need to be temped because the increased surface area, the fact that there's who knows how many, you know, parts of animals in that ground meat that
Yes,
you want to just
absolutely.
make sure you're temping that because that is a huge risk for bacteria.
Yep.
Grilling fish, hardier fish can go right on the grill, your salmon, tuna, swordfish, and then your more tender fish, you'd want to put in more like a packet. I don't know if you do this, Corey, but
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think the packet idea, aluminum foil idea is really, really good. They're just really hard and they want to fall apart on the grill. There's a reason when you go to restaurants and you see grilled fish 9 times out of 10, it's one of those top 3 right there. It's because they're not going to fall apart on the grill, right? They'll actually hold themselves together. Good notes.
yeah. We also have those in that picture shows little like cedar planks, which I think puts a lot of great flavor into salmon. So I love salmon on a cedar plank.
And they're just fun.
Unless they catch on fire, which has happened. So here's just some generalized ideas of substitutions for, you know, if instead of using this product, try this one and it's going to be a little healthier. So instead of mayo, you know, obviously a lower fat product, mashed avocado. I won't do that, but again, you can do that if you like avocado. Low fat sour creams or yogurts. Instead of pre-made dressing, do Corey's homemade dressing. It's super simple. Instead of those processed meats in the summers, what are people eating? You know, they're doing a lot of hot dogs and brats and burgers. And though my dad's from Germany, so I love brats so much. They are processed, they're high fat and they're high salt. So instead do leaner proteins, you know, different bean burgers. I love making black bean burgers, or even chickpea patties, portobello mushrooms right on the grill. You can do that. And then potato salads, pasta salad, and coleslaw. There's obviously, we've been talking about it all along, so many other ways to do vegetables other than just in a salad with a mayonnaise dressing. So try any of those things and it'd be a smart, healthy substitution. Do you have anything you'd like to?
When in doubt, you'll be surprised like how far just a squeeze of lemon juice on something goes. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
It's crazy how good it can be.
I never, and I think I've said this in other classes, I never believed that. And then you always would say it. And finally one day I was like, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. And then you add that lemon juice and it makes the food just taste more like the food. That's the only way I can describe it.
That's the crazy part about it. If you put vinegar on it, it tastes like vinegar. But if you put lemon juice on it, it tastes more like the food. I have no explanation for that. It just is.
Magic.
Yep.
Condiments, this would be like, I don't like the word avoid, so I kind of put that hyphen limit. I don't think anything should be cut out of a diet. I don't believe in that. I just believe like moderation, obviously. How often are you doing it? What health conditions do you have? If you're a perfectly healthy person, it's probably less of a concern. If you have cardiac disease or diabetes, there's other things to think about. So, you know, this whole column is just about like, these are the ones that are less healthy, probably because they're higher fat or they're higher in sodium. So instead, here are some options that are heart healthy fats or lower in sodium. So you can just kind of compare and contrast the list. I love caramelized onions. I think they go great on almost anything. So I would recommend, you know, even if it's just sauteing in a pan when you're having something out on the grill, it's going to be delicious on top.
Yeah.
Oh, this is one of my favorite. And
I love the first one.
eat before you go, so that you're not eating at festivals and fairs. I'm not going to lie to you. Fair French fries might be one of my favorite foods on the planet. Like that big bucket of fries that you get where you walk over and you squirt some unknown amount of vinegar on top. It's like, to me, that's like absolutely one of the best foods on the planet. So if you see me at a fair, not gonna lie, I'm probably gonna have French fries in my hand. But in general, if you're worried about your overall health, eat before you go or bring your own food, depending on what you're doing at the fair. Limit your intake of all those delicious fried items, the funnel cakes, the elephant ears, all those things that we have in the summer. I grew up in Lowell, Michigan, which is the home of the Kent County's 4-H fair. So every summer it was about like showing chickens and entering all the crafts that I did into the 4-H fair. And I ate so much of this stuff growing up, and it has near and dear to my heart because it's once a year. You know, you eat this stuff once a year. So if you do decide to get something, no judgment, just split it with somebody else. You're not getting the full fat load that you probably don't need. Anyway.
I've never had French fries at a fair, Corinne.
Oh my gosh, they're so good.
I did show my fries chickens at the fair, but I don't know how I missed the French fries. I'm pretty sad.
Corey, please tell me you've had fair French fries.
I will go further than that. Cedar Point French fries with malt vinegar is the most heavenly thing.
Yes.
Like Cedar Point fries, malt vinegar.
I'm missing out.
Yeah.
So good.
All right, camping, I put these slides together. I will be honest though, I've never really been camping before.
I've been camping and I do it a lot. Can I talk about this slide?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, we go camping a lot, and we have the family of 4. And the big thing is that one right there, right? Plan your meals in advance and be smart. There's a lot of things that you can cook ahead of time that you can wrap up in aluminum foil that you can warm up either in the campfire or just on a camp stove. You know, limit yourself to try to limiting. I'm sorry, I can't read it all, but limit foods that are super high in fat, so like hot dogs and all those things. See if you can push yourself like outside the boundaries of what you consider camping food, right? It doesn't just have to be a hot dog on a stick that's over a fire. We do a lot of really great, like we have bean and egg burritos in the morning that are pre-done. We wrap them up in aluminum foil, and then when you kind of put them on the camp stove, they get super crispy like that. Raw whole vegetables, raw whole fruits, take those along with. They're absolutely great. And they hold up really well in the cooler too. We all know, like, and think about how you're storing your food in your cooler. If you've been camping, you know that by the end of the second day, your food is actually swimming in ice water in the bottom of your cooler. So make sure you're just kind of staying on top of that and draining it off. And then, yeah, go for frequent walks, hike a bunch. It's good stuff. I think when in doubt, when you're camping, when it comes to food safety, make sure you bring stuff to a boil. It's a good idea, you know, just like cook it all the way through. This isn't the time to be necessarily a gourmet. Maybe it's a good time to cook your food through and enjoy the outdoors.
Thank you for covering that.
Yeah.
Like no one in my family is campers. So like my idea of camping is I show up to where my friends are camping, eat whatever dinner they have planned, maybe roast a marshmallow, and then go home to my bed. It's not something I have knowledge of. So it like freaks me out. The whole idea is just like, I don't even know where to begin.
We're going to Yellowstone this in May, so we're pretty stoked about that. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, this is something I am a little more comfortable with because in my internship was in North Carolina. So I did a ton of hiking, like long day hikes, going out to see waterfalls, whatever. So food that travels, whether you're in a long car ride, whether you're on a hike, or I guess you could be using this camping. Whole grain breads are great to bring. Peanut butter, I would bring like a jar of peanut butter everywhere I went. In fact, I went to Europe when I was like 16 and my mom's like, bring peanut butter in your suitcase because you never know when your meals are going to be or what the food is or you know, and it was so helpful because they eat very differently in parts of Europe versus what we're used to in America. And on top of that, we were walking everywhere. So I was walking like 6-8 miles a day. And then you'd go to have lunch and it was like this small baguette with like one piece of meat on the inside and you would devour it. And you're like, I'm still hungry. What do I do? So to get back to the hotel room at the end of the night, I was just eating peanut butter out of the jar. But anyway, bring peanut butter with you. Unsalted trail mix, unsalted nuts and seeds, fresh fruits and vegetables. Again, we've talked about this whole fruit and vegetable thing, dried fruits and vegetables, granola bars, high fiber cereal or oats. Like I love grape nuts. I'll just bring those and snack on them anywhere and put them in a cup and just kind of eat them out of the cup. Honey is the one food in the world that doesn't spoil ever. So you can take that anywhere you want to go. And then I'm not a big fan of tuna. It just was never a thing that I liked, but my husband loves it. So he'll just eat it right out of the packet. It's like rip open the packet and eat it out of there. Just make sure you're not saving that after the fact. Finish it in one sitting. Oh, well, that's the end. Any other thoughts, Corey?
I have no other thoughts. No, this was a fun one.
Awesome. Well, thank you both. And thank you all for listening today. We wish you healthy, fun summer celebration. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.